Good evening, everyone. Here we are in the last week of the reign of Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker. This will be the last show we do in the reign of those production team. And next week, we're back to Russell T Davies. I'm your host, Aaron. I'm here tonight with Greg. How are you doing today, Mr. King?
G'day, Aaron, and hi, everybody. I'm good.
So it's been a busy week for me. How have you done? Have you been up to anything interesting and anything to do with Doctor Who?
No, not as interesting or as busy as I think your week has been with what you've been doing. But no, I've been keeping not really looking for spoilers. I don't mind spoilers, but this time I'm trying to keep things just a bit keep away from spoilers, just to see how it all turns out on Monday. Just looking forward to just watching it without knowing too much before it all starts.
It is an interesting one. We're going to talk a bit about that. There isn't a lot of spoilers out there. I think there is a lot of speculation as to what's going to be in the episode and how close that is to what actually happens. I guess we'll know in a week. But I think we can start up tonight by looking at some of the news that's been around. So if we have a look, the Radio Times this week heralds the 100th year of the BBC. And as we know, the special that is on this week is the centenary special, not 100 years of Doctor Who, but celebrating 100 years of the BBC. Now, what's interesting about this is, I think, the first regeneration story of the modern era that hasn't had a Radio Times cover. That said, it'd be pretty hard to knock 100 years of the BBC off the front cover, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it was been a little bit confusing for some people on the outskirts. The whole 100 thing. Of course, it's not the 100th anniversary of Doctor Who. It's a BBC thing, but we have this Doctor Who story coinciding with it.
It is, and I think the thing is there's so many articles and so much speculation and so many websites saying different things. I don't think you can keep up with everything that's around at the moment. So there's obviously been press screenings, but the press screenings didn't have the last 10 minutes of the episode. So no one really knows what's going on. But there have been a few things this week which indicates, I guess, how the future's going to go. We've had, I think when we look at some of the next couple of slides, we know, and this is confirmed from the trailer, that Janet Fielding and Sophie Aldred are coming back as Tegan and Ace. And for me, this is one of the most exciting things about the special. What did you think when you heard this?
Absolutely. Yeah, this will be one of the most exciting parts of the story, I think. And very, spoiler alert, the Doctor will regenerate. Very, very excited to see these two characters from the classic era come back, and I really hope the story does some justice, and that we see some not just there as some sort of a cameo or background characters, but something significant in the story.
I think I won't go into anything that is spoilers, but I think there could be some other returning characters as well, but nothing has been confirmed yet. I think Colin, who said, spoiler alert, the Doctor will regenerate. We don't even know that yet. So I don't know if it will be a regeneration in the, I guess, the Doctor Who way of things, because this is going to be something slightly different.
Well, that's the thing. There is so much speculation, and of course, we know that David Tennant's in the stories next year. So there's so much speculation about how he's going to be reintroduced into Doctor Who, and that's one of the big mysteries that we're about to find out, hopefully.
I think one of the things that is probably good is the BBC, because it's the 100th centenary, they're sort of celebrating the show's past as well as the present. And this could be something that older fans that maybe haven't liked the last couple of years as much will give something that they'll really enjoy. I guess the thing is, though, the other side of that, if you hype it up too much, and then, as you say, they don't have much of a part and they're only in one scene, it can leave everyone disappointed again.
That's always the problem, isn't it? When the hype becomes greater than what we actually end up seeing, and then, of course, people are disappointed. I think we've seen that in the past when they hyped up, I'm thinking back to when they hyped up maybe bringing back the classic era Daleks or something. There was a lot of hype there, and it ended up being disappointing. But if they hadn't hyped it, we would have gone, oh, wow, look at these new Daleks. But the hype overplayed it, and we were expecting so much more.
The crazy thing about that, the story that touted every Dalek ever, the Dalek Asylum, kind of had a couple in the background, and then the one that didn't really hype it at all, the Witch's Familiar and the Magician's Apprentice, that had every Dalek ever, and that kind of was more exciting. I don't know if we're going to get old Daleks in this series. We could.
Well, we'll wait and see.
So the news is, I guess, continued into the Web of Fear, the segment when we look at information that's been posted online and fans' reaction to it. And of course, most of the reaction this week is about the anniversary special. The first one we've got here, if you wanted to read through those, Greg, it is just about the anniversary special.
Yeah, so Oscar says this is going to be good. Mo York says when Tegan looks more like the Doctor than the Doctor does. That's an interesting comment. Of course, both of the actors are older. I guess that their character will be the age that the actors are, which all makes sense. But I imagine that comment's more about shall we say, the more mature look that Tegan has there.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. There's been a lot of chatter online this week. I don't know if you read a lot of the feedback, especially if you're avoiding spoilers, how people are saying, oh, Tegan still is wearing a uniform that is reminiscent of her flight uniform, and Ace is still wearing the badges and things like that. Oh, come on. And I think, no, hang on a second. I kind of wear the same kind of clothes I was wearing 30, 40 years ago. I think when you're younger, you kind of get set in the fashion that you like. And 40 years later, I'm still wearing Doctor Who T-shirts. So I don't think that's a big criticism at all.
Look, I have to admit, my normal wear wardrobe is probably a good 30, 40 years old. And I'm kind of still wearing a lot of the same stuff, believe it or not. Yeah. So absolutely what you're saying, yeah, it's true.
So this is more stuff about speculation for the regeneration. I guess there's a bit more to read if you wouldn't mind.
I'll read a couple there. So Kevin says her final words whilst looking directly at the camera: the Timeless Child storyline isn't canon. William Hartnell was and always will be the first Doctor. She smiles, she regenerates, the audience rejoiced. Yeah, well, of course, a lot of people. There's a lot of controversy, of course, with Jodie Whittaker's era, and that's very much a comment about of course, the Timeless Child story arc as well, which is also very controversial. Yeah, I'm on the fence with that, but I can understand the comment there, where it's come from.
Yeah, there's a lot of negativity about the era. I tend to understand where people are coming from, but I'm still happy to watch everything and see how it goes.
That's right. So Kerry Hooper says, actually, I'm sad as I liked her. The writers are at fault, not her. And and that's another comment that I think reflects a lot of people's thoughts. A lot of people do like Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, but there's a lot more criticism of the stories, and perhaps some of them have been a bit not as good as we might have hoped for.
It would have been really interesting to see if she had had one series under Russell T Davies and then regenerated. I do think that the series had got to the point where I think the BBC thought it was almost terminal and needed just to change everything. But it might have been interesting to see how she'd gone under a better writer.
Absolutely. It is a shame that her whole time has been under the same team. It would have been great to have at least had a season under a different showrunner, just to be a bit different. If nothing else, even if it didn't turn out to be super great, I'm sure it still would have been different enough to be a worthy comparison. And for all we know, it might have worked out better than what we have had with Chibnall.
Well, do you know what Doctor Who fans love doing? They love speculating, and we'll be speculating about how it could have gone for years and years. Now, this last lot of comments is about a post that Chris Chibnall tweeted, and it was he has seen the final 10 minutes of the episode that wasn't in the press screening, and the final 10 minutes is where Russell T Davies takes over, and it's sort of the secret ending that he hadn't seen before. So he has seen it and says it's absolutely amazing, and he's clamoring to see what happens next.
Isn't that interesting? I guess when you think about it, that makes sense that the last part of the story might well be Russell T Davies. I never thought about that, but yeah, okay, that's an interesting point of view, and that's that last 10 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
Just to read something there quickly. So that first one there, Holder of Nancy, this week is going to both fly and drag by. Well, at least this week's we're getting toward the end of the week. We haven't got that long to go. Adam says, Chibnall knows Russell is a better writer than he is. We're going to see the 10th Doctor back this week, aren't we? Well, that's interesting. That's part of the speculation that's happening at the moment. Will we see Tennant at the end of this story?
It's interesting because we all know he's coming back. That's been in the filming, so we know it's happening. We don't actually know if he's going to be in this story and it's going to regenerate into him. That's what I think it's interesting to, and a bit of fun to speculate. I could imagine something happening where the Doctor regenerates into Shooty and everyone's shocked because they don't expect it. And then maybe mid-regeneration, he then turns into David Tennant and says, I don't want to go, or something. Who knows? It's going to be fun to see.
On Phil's comment there, everybody thinks Russell T Davies will just save everything. Yeah, that gets back to the whole hype thing that I was talking about. I think there's a lot of hype about how Russell T Davies is going to save Doctor Who and things will be so wonderful. But I just wonder whether there might still be disappointment after all.
There's a song about that. It's Russ, he'll save every one of us. I think. Do you know what? I think sometimes if something changes, people think it's better, and it's not actually better. It's just different. So for anyone who does love this era, it isn't that fans are negative. It's just every so often they need a change to shake things up.
Absolutely. And for me, it's more about going for the ride. I don't sit and stew, and I don't rage online. I go along for the ride. And I think I saw a comment a moment ago. There's always been bumps along the way with Doctor Who, even in the classic era. I have my favourite Doctors, my favourite stories, and then I have my lesser favourites. So this is just part of the whole tapestry of Doctor Who.
And it is, I think, if something clicks into place, it clicks in very well with people. And I think that happened when the Master turned into Missy, that was probably better embraced than Jodie has been for the whole of her term as the Doctor. It will be interesting to see how history judges this 10 years from now, much like Sylvester McCoy when he was first introduced. A lot of people did not like it, but it's aged quite well.
Well, that's the thing. And I know people who say, well, Sylvester McCoy was my Doctor, and I love him, and I love that era. So it comes down to when people start watching Doctor Who. So there will be people who started watching with Jodie, and Jodie will be their Doctor.
And Mark Dunn says, "Get the jumper leads out, boys." I'm just asking, where do you attach the jumper leads? So the next part of the Web of Fear. Last week we mentioned that BendyCon was on, and Greg was fortunate enough to attend. I wasn't, so I've got him to do a report on it. Would you like to explain what BendyCon is, a bit of its history, and what's been happening there?
Well, BendyCon. So BendyCon is a regional Victoria, Bendigo, obviously, pop culture convention. So just like your, think of your Comic Cons, but on a much, 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 much smaller scale. That idea. Pop culture and a lot of fans of pop culture getting together and having a fun day with all sorts of things going on. There's usually all sorts of vendors, lots of stuff to buy. I usually end up buying something from there. And I seem to remember buying something from you, Aaron, a few years ago at BendyCon, I believe.
Yeah, I haven't managed to get there for a couple of years, but I have sold at BendiCon. I think it started more as like a record fair or a collector's fair, and it's just
right. So the first one that so Benny. Just to go back a step, Bendigo Hoovian started in 2015, so we're 7 years old this month. We went along, so we started to go along to BendiCon in 2016. So back then it was called the Bendigo Record Toys and Collectors, something like that, fair. Yeah. So it was a big. So it included a lot of records as well as all the pop culture stuff, and it was on twice a year. So every 6 months we would put together a bit of a display, and that last slide was a couple of pictures from some of those earlier events, and we tended to just have a TARDIS and a table and a little bit of stuff for sale, and we'd usually be involved. We'd be there with the Doctor Who Club of Victoria because, of course, we are affiliated with them officially, and they would usually be involved as well. So maybe another slide now, if we could just bring up the next one. So over the years, we've put on just different displays. So as you can see there, we have a TARDIS, we have TARDIS walls, we have a TARDIS console there. One of the BendiCons, Alexandra Tynan, who you can see in there with me, came along as a special guest. So we had a very cyber themed display, and as you can see by the silver piping there, for example, we kind of dressed it up to look all cybery.
Fantastic. Who ended up with the Cyberman logo in their home?
That Cyberman logo was painted by a local member who is very, very talented with her artwork, and that's now part of the Bendigo Hoovian's display stuff. So I usually hang that at each of our meetings that we have. We have a meeting every 2 months.
That's fantastic. As we go through the pictures, what amazes me is a regional club like Bendigo seems to have as big a turnout as some of the bigger clubs that I've seen. The Doctor Who Club of Victoria has a presence at a lot of the professional cons like Armageddon and Supernova and Oz Comic Con, but the Bendigo fans seem to be waving the flag just as loud and just as brightly at the regional ones, which is fantastic to see.
Well, we're essentially a Facebook group. That's how we started. But we have a small group of core members, shall we say, who tend to be involved with most things. The displays at BendiCon, however, tend to just be, well, I organise them, and then I pull together people who have things like Daleks or things they've made that we can have on display. So we kind of pull together a display. So perhaps bring up the next slide if we can. So you can see there we've got a couple of Daleks there. So we've got the black Dalek there, Sec. So that's a Dalek that was made by a local member here in Bendigo. There's the gold one there. That's someone else made that one here in Bendigo. And the small TARDIS you can see there. Oh, and the even smaller Dalek you can see there to the left of the small the TARDIS. We've got
I'm impressed by the console there. Looks like the Third Doctor's, but the impressive thing about that, you need a shed or a huge space to store something like that when it's not being shown at a convention.
Yeah, so on the picture on the right there, you can see the Third Doctor's TARDIS console. That's my work in progress. Look, as you can tell, it's not complete, but I desperately wanted to display what I had done so far at that point. So that was back in 2019. Alas, I haven't got any further with it because indeed I need space. When I started making it, I was allowed to make it inside the house. Unfortunately, after displaying it at BendiCon, it had to go out to the shed, and I don't have enough space to kind of put it together properly yet. So,
well, you can be honest with us. Really, the Time Lords have taken away your memories of how to make the dematerialization circuit, and that's why the progression has stopped, isn't it?
Yeah, so look, let's go to the next slide. So so on the right there, you can see some costumes that we've got together for some of our displays. Again, different people putting with amazing talent. And you can see my Crino costume sneaking in there as well. So our display for 2022 is the one on the left there. So we have a great member, Michael O'Neill, who has just about every cosplay outfit of every Doctor. So what we did was we got all these outfits together and hung them up on displays and had them there as a display of all the Doctors. And
I think he was actually a little bit famous during lockdown, where he put pictures up every time he took the bins out dressed as a different Doctor. Was that him?
That was him. Yes, we did that bins thing as well, and he did a few in his different costumes. So he has done an amazing job getting together these costumes, a combination of getting jackets and things from overseas, from China, but also a lot of op shop jackets and pants and shirts and things like that. So, and then now on the right of that, you can see we have the Pandorica, put together by one of our other members, who's very, very talented in making all sorts of bits and pieces. And on the left, of course, we have our regular TARDIS, another member who has the TARDIS that lets us borrow it each time. And you can see the grey Dalek there. That's my Dalek Dave.
Wow, that's an impressive display, and it's great to see there's so much talent down at BendyCon. I think there is one picture of
one more slide. So that's also from the last one. So you can see on the right there a better view of the Pandorica with the 7th Doctor trapped in there. Sorry, not the 7th Doctor, the 11th Doctor. And then that one on the left there, a bit of a group shot combination there. So Michael O'Neill is sporting the fancy 6th Doctor outfit there.
And the 6th Doctor outfit, as we commented on our cosplayers last week, is one of the hardest to do, just because it's the 6th Doctor.
Indeed. So yeah, so we have a lot of good fun, and it's just great to put this together. I had someone say they like coming along just to see what we do each time. So I thought that was nice. That was praise that spurs me on. We'll keep going as long as BendyCon's happening.
Well, congratulations to all the Bendigo fans on the effort put into BendyCon. The next thing we're going to look at is our other regular segment, The Destruction of Time, where every week we look at an aspect of the missing episodes. Has there been a recovery? Is there any rumours? Or just something about the missing episodes from the past that we love and enjoy? This week, as Greg said earlier, I've had a busy week, and he understands why I've been busy and interesting, because I've been looking at Deceased Estate. And we've looked at some of this on the other show. We do Rip It Off the Card on Wednesday nights, but I held most of the Doctor Who stuff for tonight. Now, the estate that I'm looking through, the guy was a massive media collector, and by that he recorded and taped and hoarded about 50 years of videotapes. And this is actually what I found. All those tapes of Doctor Who, unfortunately there's nothing missing. They're beta, so it's a bit too late to be recording anything that was missing. But the interesting thing for this for me is he was a Doctor Who fan his whole life, and he had stuff that goes back to the 70s as in collectibles, and he was also recording stuff from the 70s. Unfortunately, the estate junked a lot of tapes and stuff before I was able to get out there. But the stuff that would be the most interesting is on pneumatic and older format tapes, because that goes back to the early 70s when we were still getting missing episodes played in Australia. And I think the last missing episode shown globally was the Space Pirates in Australia in 1972. Now, there is a very, very slim chance that that could have been recorded in this collection. But the more I've seen, the more that indicates there is this type of material that stretches all the way back. Now, for anyone who records and has done that for their archive for themselves, there's different formats. And I grew up with the beta and VHS, and then it went over to DVDs and I guess USB sticks. This guy is a generation older than me, and you can see there he had the pneumatic tape, which is what TV studios use to record things. And he had 4 pneumatic machines. And from some of the other things that we have identified that's on the tapes, he was recording stuff, and I have found stuff that was recorded as early as 1974. So it's very, very close to missing Doctor Who. But because he was a science fiction fan, there are a lot of other things that were missing. There's series like the ABC's Andra, that were 76 that are quite possibly amongst this collection. Now, I think everyone would love me to say what's on it. It is so much material, you can't really go through it everything. It's going to Canberra, and the archives up there have got the facilities to view these old formats, and some of the machines they've said they're quite happy to take because they need them to watch stuff. Have you been following the development of this, Greg, and what was your feelings of all of this?
Yeah, it's just, I've just been loving your segments on Ripping Off the Card about this. Isn't it amazing? I can't comprehend the idea that someone would go to these lengths. And from what I can tell, a lot of this stuff he just did or obtained and then possibly never looked at again.
Well, some of the tapes had in them recorded on this date, labeled later. He was so busy taping stuff, he didn't label stuff. On the left in that picture is possibly some of the best stuff I've found. I don't know what it is yet because none of it's actually been viewed, but they are an old video system, and on the spines it says things like The Doors, Woodstock, Led Zeppelin, a lot of very, very popular bands. And if they are some unique show off the ABC or any station in Australia that is unique and has shown something that was live or something that was different from anywhere else, that is of massive importance to all of those different fan groups. And the other tapes there, you can see different formats again, and some of them I could identify and some of them I couldn't even identify. A lot of people said, oh, they must be sound reel to reel, but they're not. They're video. They actually have video written on it. And one of the earlier ones I found, he was recording Star Trek in the mid-70s, and I found one tape that was labelled, and we've identified it probably from the format and the episode recorded in about 1976. So there is stuff going right back, and he is recording the right kind of thing that there could be an interesting find for sci-fi fans or fantasy fans that could come out of this collection via Canberra. Andra was an ABC series that was based on, I know I have the book, I don't know if it was based on the book or the book came after, but it was in the future with a robot girl. I never saw it. It was on too early for me, so I don't really know much about it. Do you remember?
I saw Andra, and it would be awesome if that was recovered, found. Yeah, I remember it from back in the 70s. Hey, from what you can tell or know of this person, is it feasible that he might have recorded old Doctor Who that's now missing and not known that he had? Therefore, he would never let anyone know.
He was what is interesting to me. He was a big Doctor Who fan. There was full runs of Doctor Who magazine and Doctor Who comics and records and things like that. Which is what is even more strange. I don't know who it was, but I would have known him because I have found stuff in the collection with my handwritten price stickers on. So he had bought stuff. I had a shop in Camberwell 20 years ago, and he was buying stuff from there. But he seems to be unknown amongst fandom. I've asked different people in fandom his name, and no one remembers him. And I don't remember him. Can't identify from what he collected who he was. He lived local in Camberwell, so he was around. And the other thing that's interesting is he had all the flyers for different conventions and events by the Doctor Who Club of Victoria and Skywalking, and the Austrek clubs. But he probably just catalogued all this stuff and never went, which is really bizarre. And it is one of those things where I do wish I'd got in 2 months earlier before the estate was cleaned out, because the estate did say they threw out a lot of pneumatic tapes because nobody can watch those. And I was like, well, he had 4 machines that could play them under the house, so he could watch them. It is quite sad that the material was destroyed, but you can't really dwell on that.
Indeed, and you've got so much more that you can look at amongst what you found, so much more there. So at least it's not all gone.
It is interesting because I've had a couple of people say to me, don't send it up to Canberra, bring it round and we'll just go through every weekend and catalogue it ourselves. And I'm like, you actually don't understand what 10,000 tapes looks like and how that would be the rest of your life going through it.
I'll take a box and go through it for you, Aaron.
Well, a lot of the stuff is going to be a lot of searching and finding everything that's on the tapes. We are moving on to our collectibles portion of the show. The Brat Suit Tell Collection is a Facebook page that I run and Greg and I contribute to, and it looks at all aspects of Doctor Who collectibles. Every week we put up a different theme for people to post their collectibles or discuss collectibles from that theme. And this week, it was, of course, Jodie Whittaker collectibles because it's the last week of her reign as the Doctor. And it is interesting. I never really collected any Jodie Whittaker stuff, and I've still got a lot of it. Somehow Doctor Who stuff sort of gravitates to me. It is amazing to see how much Jodie Whittaker stuff there was out there. There was figures and sonic screwdrivers, but there's a lot of other things like mugs and postcards, books, little miniature versions of the TARDIS there from Eagle Moss. So she got the full treatment with merchandise as other Doctors. There doesn't seem to be as much around as some of the other Doctors, maybe because people don't ask for it as much, so the shops don't stock it. But if you were a Jodie Whittaker collector, you can fill a room with merchandise from her era of the show. I don't really collect a lot of the new merchandise anymore. Do you get into the new merchandise, Greg?
Yeah, I have a bit. I've collected the action figures, and you saw the picture there of the Barbie version of the Doctor, and I've got one of those. I quite thought that was quite nice.
I've got the Barbie too. It is interesting. Like I said, I didn't think I had much when I was going through. I do have a bit of it. It's just the collector in me. So I think if you do collect Jodie Whittaker, it could be one of those things that down the track become quite valuable, because not as many people have collected stuff from this era, and often you will find with collectibles that if something isn't collected down the track when people look for it, it's very hard to find. So it's a double-edged sword. You might not want to collect it because you don't like it, and then down the track when you reassess your opinion and look for it, you can't find it anymore and you have to pay a premium. So I've cherry-picked some of the nicer items just so I've got some.
Yeah, that's right. And Kelvin's comment there too, I think a lot of the merchandise, it didn't sell, certainly not as well. Well, you would have a better idea than me of how it sold compared to, say, classic era stuff. But you're absolutely right. Down the track, it'll be harder to find.
Yes, for sure. And I say as a shop it doesn't sell, but most of it does. It just doesn't sell in the quantities that we get it. The other interesting thing this week that you might like to go into, Greg, is the new figures have hit the shores, and that green button means they're available to order for Icon. So what does that mean for collectors on your page?
That means that we're going to see some new figures very, very soon, hopefully. Yeah, very much looking forward to the Dalek figures there. A nice combination. We've got the Planet of the Daleks, the Supreme there, and the Lightwave Invisible Dalek. This time without any of the paint on it, which makes it different to the original release. And of course, we have two Death to the Daleks. A little bit of controversy with some of the paint work, because apparently in the factory they missed painting part of the Death of the Daleks, but it's the sort of stuff that if you're a little bit handy, you can probably fix up yourself. It's painting a bit of black here and there. But I'm very excited about these and looking forward to them. The Tennant set, I'll get one, but it's a bit ho-hum. I'm just disappointed that Icon didn't bring in the other set that's been released, which is the Eighth Doctor set.
Yes, so that was a bit controversial. The Eighth Doctor one would probably have sold better than the one they've brought in. Interestingly, and this happens a lot with the stuff that's brought in, because I have an account with them and can order stuff, I ask about things and they say, Character didn't offer us the Eighth Doctor. Yeah, I asked Character, and Character say, Icon didn't want the Eighth Doctor. So I don't know why we didn't get it, but it's just one of those miscommunications, or maybe they really just didn't want it. The other thing I'll bring up Aaron's Collectibles is fan club and Facebook page friendly. So anyone who's looking for these, we probably get them in Friday, maybe Monday. We give a 10% discount to anyone in any of the fan clubs or who come in and say we were a member of this Facebook page and have seen your offer. So you can get them slightly cheaper from us if you are looking for these sets.
Oh, that's fantastic, Aaron. And just your comment there about character option says one thing and icon says the other. We've had that same story for previous times when we didn't get everything, so it's all a bit odd.
It is, and I just don't think we'll ever really get a real comment on getting to the bottom of it, of what's happening there. Now, this is one of the other things that we'll do in this segment from time to time, and this is when we've actually found stuff in the wild. And there's not a lot of stuff that turns up in Australia that is super rare or is that I need. But this was interesting. This was from the estate that I'm clearing, and the guy hoarded stuff, and he has an amazing record collection. And the records were in such good condition, he brought them, and he never took them out of the bags they were brought in when he got them home. So I got the music on LP from Brash's with the Brash's receipt and the Brash's sticker and the Brash's bag in brand new condition, and a little box, a little bag there from the ABC shop with the 25th anniversary album and the hologram version of the 12-inch again that was still in the bag they came home in with the receipt, which is absolutely amazing to see. And then he had also been to a Collins clear out because he kept all the price stickers on. And I used to, when I was growing up, hate the price stickers and try and get them off and not leave a mark. Now I really love to see that they started out at $29 and went to $15 and then to $5.99, and then the cookbook was thrown out at 99 cents. So it gives you a bit of history there. And the other two there are Target ones, the Travels J&T's, what's that called? Is it Travels Without the TARDIS?
The TARDIS Inside Out.
TARDIS Inside Out. And of course, there's a little Last Starfighter one that slips in just on the verge for being a Target book. But have you found anything interesting around lately, Greg?
No, well, again, I've just been in awe of the stuff you're finding with this deceased estate. It's funny you talk about price stickers. I try to get price stickers off. I don't like them on the front, but I'll always try to find somewhere around the back I can re-stick them so that I can keep the price sticker, so that I can look back down the track if I want to and see how much I paid for it.
A true collector, like when you'd have the stickers, the height of stickers on a DVD, but it's on the plastics. When you take the plastic off, you try and peel the sticker off and put it back on the DVD, so you've got the 5 Doctors on DVD for the first time sticker as well without throwing it out.
Yeah, yes. I've done that where I would peel those stickers off and then stick them on the inside of the case. Yes.
So the other thing we're going to highlight is some of the interesting stuff other members have posted on the Braxiatel collection during the week. And I think here we actually have someone watching. Mark posted some of these Viewmasters, which are in lovely condition. They do not turn up in such amazing condition anymore. And then someone else from England posted the other ones up, which is the yellow version of the Tom Baker one, which is quite hard to find, and the Viewmaster gift set, which is impossible to find because it was basically withdrawn and taken off the shelves within days of being put out. And that's because it has pictures of the Daleks on the side, and there are no Daleks on the Viewmaster. And also there's a TARDIS, but they painted it red instead of blue, making it horribly inaccurate. It was probably the artist's choice to do that, but it drew enough attention to the BBC that they said, nah, and it was withdrawn. And because I think it wasn't selling well enough anyway, they didn't reissue it. So that's a really impossible item to get. Do you have any of the Viewmaster collectibles?
Not at all. I think they look awesome, just on display like that. I never got into Viewmaster. I don't think I ever had a Viewmaster as a kid. I know it was big at some stage. I'm not sure. Would it have been? I presume it was in the 70s, which would have been.
They were huge because they did a lot of like Hanna-Barbera and Disney stuff. I have never found a Doctor Who one in Australia. I found Star Trek Next Generation. I don't think the Doctor Who ones were sold here. So maybe you can only import them from the UK, and that's why you might have missed them on the first time round.
Yeah, no, I never had a Viewmaster of anything, so, but it always looked cool, but nothing that I ever had as a kid. But those Doctor Who ones, they look great just as a display, a merchandise display. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think we're moving on to more collectible goodness, which is our eBay report brought to you by the Master, Mastering eBay, how to get the best out of eBay, and also just to see some of the interesting items you might have missed over the last week. Now, this is a crazy one. We're looking at the Master's records, which is high prices for eBay items. And this is Pops, which I personally am not thrilled by, but I do like to highlight stuff that goes for silly prices. This is Freddy Funko, which is the Funko's mascot, and they dress him as different franchises, and they always have them at conventions or special events, so they're quite hard to get. And it ensures Freddy Funko is always the most popular and expensive pop, which is quite smart when you think about it. This is the first Doctor Who one I have seen come up on eBay for a while. What did you think of the price on this, Greg?
Well, I think Pops are an abomination. So to see people paying those sort of prices, well, I don't know. It's just completely out of my ability to comprehend. Sorry.
That's one of those crazy things. $1,249 US is a flight return to the US to just pick one up there, right there, isn't it? Which is kind of crazy when you think about what you could use with that money. I cannot myself criticize anyone who pays anything for a collectible, because someone could turn around and point out I've paid just as crazy prices for something that they think should go into the hard rubbish. But it has always shocks me when Pops go for that much. They are a modern collectible. Now, this is an interesting one. I have never seen a full set of this sold together before. Now, these were done by the Danebury Mint, and it's a pin collection from all different eras. It's unusual because pin collecting is quite big in the US, but hasn't spread as much to other places in the world. This was a UK set, all the different pins from Doctor Who, and they came in a really amazing TARDIS display. And they all each pin came with a little fact card, and at the bottom of the TARDIS there's a little drawer you can keep all the fact cards in. You see these sell individually, but I don't think I've ever seen a set before. And initially I thought that was quite expensive, like £700 is like $1,300 at the moment. But when you work out what the individual pins go for, you'd probably pay more assembling it one pin at a time. Do you collect pins, and does this collectible turn you on?
I do. I like pins. I don't have a collection of them as such, but I always keep an eye out for any Doctor Who themed pins. But in saying that, I don't really have any. That looks like a fantastic collection. I wouldn't pay £700 for it though.
Yes, it is one of those things. I do remember when they came out, I was impressed that it came out, of course, because of the popularity of modern Doctor Who, but it did do classic series in equal amounts. So you've got pins of Leela and classic monsters, as well as the new Doctor, which I always think is great, because it means that because the new series is popular, classic series fans are able to get new merchandise that they wouldn't have got otherwise. So a nice little set there, even though it's quite expensive.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Now, here's another couple of items, rare and also at hitting new prices that I haven't seen before. Now, there is a little bit of controversy about the top one there, which is the Dalek gun that went for £1,000, so $2,000. That was listed originally at £49, and there was a lot of people bidding on it. I myself was watching it to see what the price went for, and then the seller withdrew it, relisted it at £1,000 buy it now, and it sold instantly. So they had obviously done a deal with someone outside of eBay to sell it for £1,000, because they thought they wouldn't get any more than that if they let the auction run. Now, the little game I like to play when sellers do this is wait a week and then contact the buyer and say, I was watching your auction and I was going to I was going to bid in the last couple of seconds. I was prepared to pay £2,500. By chance, do you still have the item just in case you want to sell it to me privately? And that teaches bestseller not to stop seeing in the middle of it. The other one there is the original version of Doctor Who: An Exciting Adventure with the Daleks, and it went for £661, which is probably one of the highest prices I've seen that go for. And it is in really nice condition, but it's not mint, and I would have expected it mint for that. Do you own either of those? Do you have aspirations to pay for one of those?
No, not at all. Yeah, those books, they certainly go for a lot. And again, that's something else that, gee, they'd be nice to have, but unfortunately, it's well outside of any budget I could possibly have. I did like your little story about eBay. I've seen that happen before, where things, you're watching something or even bidding on something, and then the seller just pulls it, and that just gets up. That's just so annoying. I really hate it when they do that.
Yeah, I've had that happen to me a lot. That's why I do that, because it is annoying. Now that's my version, my original, and you can see it's a little bit dog-eared around the edges. And I think I paid about £50 for that one when it came up. It's not an ex-library, but it's well loved. And the BBC actually did a facsimile edition about 10 years ago now, and you can buy a mint condition one. It just has the BBC logo and a barcode on the back, and you can still pick them up for about $10. So it's a cheap way to buy a reproduction of the original.
Yeah, I think I have that myself. I picked that up in recent years. Yeah.
And so here's the Master's eBay tip of the week for mastering eBay. Now, I bought this. It isn't a Doctor Who item, but it happens with Doctor Who items quite a lot. You can see the winning bid was a massive £5. And you can see the international postage was £23 or £24. Fair enough, because I'm not going to moan if I get something cheap to pay the postage. But the thing that really irks me is the import charge, which is £4.65, where the item is £5. The import charge is GST. How much is GST, Greg?
10%.
So how's your maths? 10% of £5?
Yeah.
50 pence. So why are eBay charging £4.45? And this is what they're doing. It's the eBay handling fee. So for everything that's sold on eBay, where they collect the tax, they're working on a handling fee. So where you should be paying 50 pence tax, they're charging £4 tax, which I think is pretty rotten when the item is that cheap. But you can get around this, which isn't against eBay rules. When you win something and they send you the invoice, the seller in the UK does not see the charges that eBay put on. They just say you're paying the postage and the item of the price of the item. If you contact the seller and say, I'm trying to pay, but the eBay link isn't working, just tell me exactly how much you want me to pay and your PayPal address, and I will pay you. They will generally say, that's fine, give the PayPal address. You pay them the amount, and you don't pay the fee that eBay is charging.
Very good.
On every single item, it can save you hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Mm.
And here's one last bonus one that I found. I don't know if you've seen this annual. It's not actually an official annual. It's called a fan annual. And they've produced these for the years that the official Doctor Who annual didn't come out. So this is the fan annual William Hartnell Doctor, and it came out last year. If you bought it last year, it was about £20 with postage. So by the time you got it landed, it was about $55. So that's a good $55 investment. And a year later, they're getting bid on eBay, and they're going for over £400. So you can change your $50 to $800 in this instance anyway. I know you collected some of the original annuals. Did you get any of the fan annuals?
Yeah, isn't that an interesting part of our Doctor Who stuff, these fan annuals? I've been watching them, and I did get an omnibus, a collection. They brought out a collection of their first, I don't know, 2 or 3, and I bought that one. Isn't it? Yeah, isn't it interesting how even as something that like this that's not official, just fan produced, and yeah, they can go for these sort of prices on eBay.
Well,
Amazing.
they're almost like an extremely high quality fanzine. They've just been, bound hardback, and then people buy them from a site that sort of publishes as you order them. But it kills me, because I have that, and if I could have that much money, I'd rather put it into a real piece of 60s merchandise.
Yes.
But then I don't want to sell it because then I don't have the set of handhelds anymore, and you can't get. It's not likely to pick them up cheap. So it is one of those dilemmas that collectors have, where do you just sell the new piece of merchandise because you're not as attached to it, or because it's valuable, do you want to keep it because you might not ever be able to pick it up again? But I do find it interesting that something produced last year can be getting the prices of something that was produced in the 60s.
Absolutely.
So I think we're moving on to our last segment, which is the 60s in colour, where we look at different Doctor Who episodes each week and how they may have appeared in colour. Well, last week we did the Mind Robbers, and this week we're looking at the Wheel in Space, which was the last episode of season 5, I think. The story that introduced Zoe, and of course the return of the Cybermen. The Wheel in Space is one of those episodes where only 2 parts exist, the rest are missing. And some of the pictures we're seeing here are from episodes that don't exist. So there is no film footage of the servo robot there. Do you remember seeing Wheel in Space when it was originally on, Greg, or is it a little bit too old for you?
No, unfortunately, I don't recall seeing much at all of the Troughton era. Certainly not this one. I have a couple of scenes that I kind of remembering from the Troughton era, but no, definitely not this one.
Yeah. Well, there are not many colour reference pictures from Wheel in Space. I'm not sure if there's actually any. So we can go nuts on the colorization and put in any colours we want. No one's going to tell us that we're wrong. Some of the space suits are quite interesting, because you might notice they look like Bosk and Boschek from Star Wars, because they use the same prop store to do sci-fi for Doctor Who as they did for Star Wars. And so multiple times those space suits turn up in Doctor Who in different costumes. And I think they were actually Russian cosmonaut suits. They were in 10th Planet, and they're in Wheel in Space. I think they might be in the Space Pirates and a couple of other episodes as well. So
I believe they're high altitude jet fighter type outfits of some sort. And they were first seen in a was it one of the first H.G. Wells' First Men in the Moon movie?
Okay. I know they might have been. There was a Pathfinders to Space and Pathfinders to Venus that they might have appeared in as well. But they are ones that have heritage. The interesting thing is these could be in the army disposal stores right up until the 80s and go for absolutely nothing. Now, if one turns up on eBay, there are so many cosplayers and so many people that know the background of these suits that they go for many thousands of pounds to get an accurate one to cosplay as Bosk or something like that. The Cybermen, I guess they're silver, but we've got the Cybermats here as well, which probably in Wheel in Space did the most they did in any episode. They appeared and kind of had their moment, a little scene in Tomb of the Cybermen. But in Wheel in Space, they were part of the plot where the Cybermen sent them across to eat the beryllium that powered the laser guns so the Cybermen could invade the Wheel. And this is one of the better action sequences. And this is from an episode that still exists where the Cybermats, or as they call them, Billy Bug, come in and show that they're malevolent and not just little space creatures, and actually attack and kill the guy who manages to spray one with, I think it's a liquid plastic, so the Doctor can examine it. That's one of the very cool scenes in Wheel in Space. And I do remember when Part 3 was recovered, that was one of my favourite scenes.
Those colorizations look really good, don't they?
They are fantastic. it is interesting on something that doesn't have a lot of color. Just doing some grading and some lighting on it still makes it come alive. It would have been amazing if some of these things were filmed in color. I know some traditionalists would always want to watch it in black and white, but seeing it in color is just a different, gives an opportunity to see stories in a different light.
Absolutely.
So some more colorization. You've got, I think, was it the cyber planner in this one? That one, that first picture, the cyber leader. Quite different design from anything else. And you have the Cybermen doing a spacewalk because they can exist in the vacuum of space. You have the X-ray of Billy Bug there, which is quite interesting because it's a futuristic X-ray, but now you look at it, it's quite a crude drawing that was obviously done by the art department. And you've got the Doctor and Jamie, and I think that's Gemma, isn't it? The other one that's interesting there is the Doctor in the storage room, which I've gone for brighter colours to hype it up, a bit more lost in space than Doctor Who.
Yeah, I noticed the somewhat psychedelic look in that one.
I think if you're going to do colorizations, you might as well push the color around a bit. Now, this is an interesting one. Now, I don't know if you recognize the prop in the big picture there. That's turned up in quite a lot of Doctor Who episodes. It was in the Space Museum. I think it was a Dalek computer in a couple of episodes. Might have been in Keith and Marinus as well. But it is one of those props that there was obviously labelled random science fiction instrument, wheel out when you need something cheap from the prop department. So we've got that there, and we've got the Cyberman, which is again a bit more silver, and I put a bit more blue lighting in his chest unit there. So Wheel in Space, although it was set entirely on a space station, it could have looked amazing if it had gone out in colour originally.
Yeah, no, they look good. I like those. The skin tones were particularly good, I thought, in that compared to some I've seen that are not so good.
I think Kelvin is saying there, black and white is the way to go. Yeah. Kelvin, if you're quick, because there's a delay, tell us which story you'd love to see in colour next week, and we'll do it for you. So next week, just to see if we can persuade you and change your mind on black and white. Phil Nichols, amazing work on the colorizations. Billy the Bug was a comic strip in Sonic Screwdriver, I think, for Doctor. He was, and I don't know, it might have even been, was it Richard Franklin who?
Richard Freeland, I think, did those.
Yeah, yes. Who drew that way back in the 80s, I think.
Yes.
So, yeah, Kelvin, have you got a story there? We'll see if we can change your mind on colorizations before we end the show, because we're right at the tail end of the show. So before we go, I have to ask you, will you get up 5 a.m. Monday to watch the new episode before there's any spoilers, or will you sleep in and just avoid the internet and watch it later?
No, look, I will watch it later in the day, which is what I normally do with news stories. I'm fairly happy to just not look at stuff online or in certain areas online. Again, I'm not too fussed about spoilers, but yeah, I'm just making sure that I don't, deliberately go in and find them, shall we say.
What I'll do, I'll get up at 5 o'clock and watch it, and then I'll just message you about what I thought of it.
Yeah. No, well, I think what we should do is talk about it in our next episode next week.
Yes. So thanks everyone for being here tonight. Obviously, next episode, the bulk of the episode will be looking at the new story, the first one we've had since The Legend of the Sea Devils. Our Doctor Who in colour will be Marco Polo, suggested by Kelvin. There is already a lot of colour reference for that one, so it'll be interesting. I'll stick to the telly snaps and see what we can do. There's plenty of scope for Marco Polo to look amazing in colour. Thanks for joining us and co-hosting tonight, Greg. Did you want to add anything before we sign off?
No, I should just let you see what my T-shirt is.
Wow. I love that T-shirt. Where did you get that one from?
That was just Redbubble. So somebody's put that together, and I thought, yeah, that's pretty cool.
No problem. I'm not going to stand up like a very fat-looking Dalek. But yeah, so excellent T-shirt, and you can find very unique stuff on Redbubble. My T-shirt collection, I can't look at those sites because it just doesn't even fit into my drawers. So thanks for co-hosting tonight. It's been fun. Thanks everyone for joining us and commenting along. Enjoy the new episode of Doctor Who, and we'll be back here next week to discuss it.
See you, everybody.
Good night.